What are you seeing here?
Well, we see another Los Angeles pursuit, this time on the Harbor Freeway, and the speed is really not excessive. When you look at the flow of traffic, we've got considerable traffic. I don't know if something just let out on the freeway, but clearly in the 70s, I'd say 70 mile, well, they show 120, no way he's going 120 miles an hour, probably in the 70 mile range. Then we see the continuing lane changes, splitting traffic, trying to get away. There's a unit close behind, obviously air units overhead, and they'll continue. I don't know what the pursuit generated.
Dennis, it's Marla here. It's a stolen vehicle, LAPD,
Okay.
the lead agency. And yes, the speeds are off right now. That's usually because the helicopter is doing its best to maneuver around, so it can get a little wonky. So forgive the speeds. Certainly not 120 miles per hour. Let's hope not anyway. But go ahead, Dennis. So it is a stolen vehicle. We're on the 110 now, express lane.
So we're in the 110. I believe we're going northbound on the 110. And that'll lead us into the Civic Center. So the units, the LAPD will request the Higher Patrol. It's on the freeway. Higher Patrol will definitely join in, and normally they take responsibility when it's on the freeway, but it's a stolen vehicle. We don't know the particulars, where it was stolen from, et cetera. Was it involved in another crime at that particular time? But they'll assess all that and get the units to make sure that there's proper discipline with the pursuit. They always have protocol when it comes to pursuits. And when it comes to the jurisdiction, while the freeway, obviously CHP, jurisdiction that started was Los Angeles Police Department, but there's a great cooperation between the two agencies, between the LAPD and the California Patrol. So as you see the movement, the continuing lane changes, find they break in traffic and then makes the split into the next lane. But what we have with the air unit overhead, that'll keep continuing track and broadcast. Basically what happens now is the air unit will be broadcasting the pursuit information.
So
Dennis,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You use that term protocols. What are the protocols?
Well, and now that we're, it looks like we're going to go back onto the highway and on the frontage road here. Are we staying on the frontage road? Yeah, protocols are different when you're on surface streets versus the highways.
Well, absolutely. What you have on the freeway is no traffic, pedestrian traffic. You don't have bicycles. You don't have the continuing hazards. What you have is traffic, and if the traffic is heavy, it impedes that particular individual in a stolen vehicle from speeding. Now we see on surface streets where they'll have the condition of going through red lights. You got pedestrians, a lot of hazards on the surface streets compared to the freeway. So it becomes much more dangerous for the general public. And what the officers need to do is make sure they have a proper distance, but they don't create an environment that's going to be hazardous to pedestrian and other vehicles. If this individual decides to go through a red light, mid-phase red, broadsides a car, obviously they're going to look at the police and say, well, why didn't you terminate? And oftentimes when it gets to excessive speed, as we see with this, this watch commander will say, let's terminate this. It's getting too hazardous.
And is there a trend towards terminating them sooner than later?
Well, all particular. It just depends on the traffic, the time of the day, if the pedestrians, if you're near a venue and people are letting out and you got pedestrians. Everything's taken into consideration. If it's quiet, nothing on the roads, then continue with the pursuit. But once it starts impeding the hazards of the people and impacting the hazards of the people, the general public, that's when they say, well, it's time to terminate. And oftentimes they will. Obviously, if the supervisor gives that direction, they will terminate. But public safety is the number one concern, because when you have a pursuit, individual is injured or, God forbid, killed, then the city obviously has great liability. And we know the city financial situation's in bad shape as it is. So they want to err on the caution to make sure they don't create more liability and harm people. The police want to protect people and not harm people. But the individual who's stolen his car, who's in the stolen vehicle, we don't know what their record is like, what they've been in jail for, if they have been in jail, if they've been in prison, what they've done, what prompted them to steal this car, was it involved with another crime? All those factors come into play. But I think we're back on the freeway, if I'm not mistaken. It looks like we're back on the freeway again.
Yep, we're southbound on the 110 right now. And yeah, those speeds are about 100 miles per hour. And that makes sense. If traffic's flowing at 60, 70 miles per hour, this guy or woman is hauling right now. I mean, weaving dangerously in and out of these vehicles driven by people who have no idea that a pursuit is coming up behind them. We talk about this a lot. When you find yourself in this situation, you may not know it, but certainly do not get involved. Do not try to be the hero, because things could go terribly wrong and end up in a deadly situation. We hate to see that. We report on these pursuits all the time where it comes to a crashing end. And Dennis, when you have speeds this high, that could very well happen at any given moment.
Well, you can see the hazardous driving, but this individual obviously wants to flee, get away from the police, and what the police need to do is recognize the public. When you're on a freeway, you don't have the hazards you have on the surface street, but at the same time, you got people in cars, and those people are trying to get to their destination, and you don't want them to be involved in a collision. If this vehicle collides with someone at this speed, you're going to have some critical and oftentimes fatal injuries because of the impact of the vehicle. So all the particulars, was this car stolen with in condition with associated with a robbery, with a burglary, what the circumstances, we don't know. But we know that's a stolen vehicle, and obviously the fact that the individual's not complying and not pulling over and stopping, it just adds to the fact this is a stolen vehicle, and the perpetrator has maybe done this before and doesn't want to get caught, doesn't want to go back to jail or prison. But it puts the entire public on that freeway in great jeopardy in case something goes sideways in this particular situation. And they're all unique, they're all different, but sadly, sometimes they end in great tragedy for innocent people, and that's what we want to avoid, is the innocent people. We don't want this individual to get harmed. We want to take him in jail, put him in court, let the judge, the jury decide. But the public safety is the number one concern, and that's what they're going to do. If they decide to terminate, they'll say the jeopardy is too great, terminate the pursuit, and they comply and they terminate.
We've done stories over the years, and I know this is something that you've no doubt studied from back in your days with the LAPD on. It just seems amazing to me that we don't have the technology in use in Southern California to use alternatives to pursuits. Why is that?
Well,
why can't there be a system implemented successfully? I mean, there's been different trial and errors.
They have different devices. They have devices that will hook to the rear of the vehicle. It projects out from the pursuing vehicle.
Yeah.
There's devices that they have. Whether they're 100% effective or not, the best thing is if they can disable. With the electronics that we have today, if the air unit could overhead and disable, or if the air unit could clamp onto that vehicle and bring it to an end, but the hazard to the general public is so increased at such a great degree when you've got a pursuit, whether it's a surface street or a freeway. But in this particular case, you don't have those other hazards, people riding bicycles, skateboards, etc., those pedestrians, and oftentimes they become the innocent victim. But here we have other traffic, motorcycle riders, etc. That's another hazard. So what we see is this continuing speeding, and whether it's 100 miles an hour, 100 miles plus, and those units will be on that tail. There'll be a primary and a couple backups with this, and other units in the area will converge. If the individual takes an off-ramp, gets off on the surface street, and at this excessive speed, creates great hazard to the general public and the motoring public in that particular area. And I think we're probably in 77th Street Division, or I assume we're 77th or Harbor by now. We continue going southbound. I believe we're southbound on the freeway.
Yeah, it is just passing the San Pedro exit there, 110 southbound. You are correct. Speeds just above 100 miles per hour. You noticed it right when we came on the air. I noticed it. How much traffic is out there on this Friday night? Yes, I understand we're in Los Angeles, and yes, it's always a problem. Traffic is heavy, but usually when we get these pursuits this late at night, even on a Friday night, it's a lot lighter on the road. So it's even more precarious just given the speeds of this suspect. Stolen vehicle suspect, if you're just joining us, now we're going through Compton. According to what we're hearing, this may have started near USC. It is just at this point being described as a blue sedan, trying to get the make and model, but whatever it is, it's got some pep to it. Again, speeds above 100 miles per hour. We talk about bringing these things to an end, Dennis. I mentioned the spike strips earlier. That could happen, I suppose, but with the level of traffic, I'm not so sure. Obviously, a pit maneuver is out of the question. Usually that happens on a surface street. So we'll see what this driver decides to do. But if you're law enforcement, what are you thinking right now?
Well, you want to bring this to a stop, but spike strips, with the hazards of the officer, to deploy spike strips with this speed, they'd have to get quite a ways ahead, and then you've got other vehicles that are on the road there's too much hazard for a spike strip with this many lanes on the freeway. It's either going to come to an end through runs out of gas, which is the best course of action. They're not going to do a ramming or anything to that degree. They'll follow the safe distance, and hopefully individual will stop before it gets into a collision, and that's the fact. If it continues driving this way, there might be a collision and innocent people that get injured.
You know,
we want to avoid that.
While we've been talking, I was just looking online, and it's really tough to get reliable statistics, but it seems that about 25 to 35% of all pursuits end in some sort of collision, which seems like really a high number to me to justify continuing these things. I mean, is there a school of thoughts that says, you know, we'll get them the next time, or is it seems? Do you know what I'm asking? I mean, why pursue? Why don't just say it's too dangerous? Statistically, it's too dangerous. Let it go. I mean, assuming it's not like a violent murder suspect on the loose.
Right. But every pursuit is dangerous. Clearly, every pursuit is dangerous. Whether it's a car, motorcycle, whatever the case may be, it's dangerous. But when we look at the traffic flow at this particular time, if this was 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, this wouldn't be happening. But what we have is moderate traffic and obviously excessive speeds. We're not endangering pedestrians. We're not endangering people on cross streets. So you're on a freeway, which is probably the safest place if you want to have a pursuit, where you don't have the other hazards that you find on a surface street. No going through red lights, no going through crosswalks where people are trying to cross the street, skateboards, etc. So what you have is basically an ideal situation on a freeway, which you have one issue is the car you're pursuing and other cars, other vehicles that are at this particular hour, not that many, and at a safe distance. Mm-hmm. So what I think, if you want to look at the hazards, there's much less hazard in this particular situation than a surface street. If this individual is doing this on a surface street, I'm sure the watch commander, the supervisor in charge, would have terminated a long time ago. But really, the hazard is minimal, which you see what we have now, because those other hazards we see on a surface street do not exist here. No cross traffic, no crosswalks, no pedestrians, no skateboarders.
We're getting on the surface streets right now. We're getting through the crosswalks and all that. So this is Harbor City, Figueroa Place, and West Anaheim Street. Here we are at an intersection. You know, getting back to the discussion you were just having, this idea of why pursue in the first place if it's just too dangerous. We've seen that before, though, that even when authorities back off, they still drive recklessly because they don't. They're still thinking that they will get taken into custody.
Exactly. We see I think that might be Highway Patrol on the. It might
CHP just took over.
Just jumped in there.
It's CHP now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, CHP. They're very aggressive with pursuits, and we'll see where this individual is going to go. But that CHP unit is right on that individual. Now we're in an area where you're going to find little activity, but now we're back on the freeway. So now we're back on the freeway where you're going to find this CHP unit, and the CHP units converging. They're much more aggressive than LAPD. Even the Sheriff's Department. The CHP is the most aggressive when it comes to pursuits. But again, the individual owns this car. Who knows what valuables are in the car? We have an obligation, law enforcement, to get this car back to that person in good condition. I mean, the taxpayer deserves to have this car back and not have it destroyed.
Yeah, but you're not saying returning a stolen car takes priority over public safety, obviously.
No. Public safety is number one. Absolutely, it's number one. But at the same time, anytime law enforcement engages, there's always a hazard. Yeah. Whether it's a shoplift arrest, a robbery arrest, I mean, there are hazards involved. You want to reduce those as much as possible. But again, at this late hour, at 100-plus miles per hour on the freeway with CHP in pursuit, and again, you know the aggressiveness of the California Highway Patrol in pursuits. They do pull out all the stakes to get those individuals. Traffic enforcement by them is number one priority, much more aggressive in traffic enforcement than local agencies. So there's a lot of factors that come into this. But fortunately for the general public, traffic is light, very light at this hour. And when you're going over 100 miles an hour, that's excessive speed. But those CHP officers are trained for that. Their vehicles are equipped for that. And we'll see where this ends up, whether they run out of gas, which is a nice ending, or decides to surrender peaceful, and if this individual continues. And who knows what else was involved in this. Was there a theft involved? Was there some kind of a crime against the person involved, or was this a car that was stolen because they left the keys in there by mistake? So there's a lot of factors that come in. If they're fleeing for a variety of reasons, not just they stole the car. Something else is. Otherwise, Have they been to jail? They don't want to go back. They've been to prison. They don't want to go back. And we won't know that until this comes to a conclusion. But again, law enforcement has a responsibility to return property to the rightful owner, and that's what they're trying to do. And this individual obviously is resisting that effort by law enforcement.
You bring up a good point.
Vehicle.
Something that I thought of right away when we heard that CHP now is taking this over is CHP tends to be more aggressive. Explain that.
Well, you see how the pursuit's going. The CHP unit is very, very close. Their pursuit tactics are much different than L.A. L.A., you'd have a primary, a secondary, you'd have a supervisor giving directions, and we'd have the air unit overhead. Ideal to have the air unit clearing the intersections and the activity that we can see from the sky. Well, with this particular case, we have the media overhead along with law enforcement, and the CHP, the CHP officer, well trained for this, and they know exactly what they're doing. But this is one of their primary functions in pursuits, to apprehend that individual in a safe manner. Much more aggressive, like I say, than local law enforcement is when it comes to pursuits, because local law enforcement major concerned about public safety, and many times they will terminate those pursuits. Individual gets away, but then that person who owns that vehicle, whatever valuables in that vehicle, we have law enforcement have an obligation to get that back to that person. So sometimes there's a conflict, but the conflict, you need to weigh that out, and you have to balance it with public safety. And the number one, you want to protect the general public. And this individual deserves to get arrested and go through the criminal justice procedure, but that's it. You don't want to see an individual harmed. That's not part of it. Part of it is take them into custody in a peaceful manner and let the courts decide, let the district attorney decide. So what we see is this continuing vehicle at now 130 miles an hour. But again, the freeway traffic is extremely light, and with that light traffic, you can negotiate at this excessive speed. On the CHP, I'm sure there'll be more than one CHP unit in this.
Yeah.
They will continue to follow and bring this to an end as quickly as possible. This is their bread and butter, is freeways and safety on the freeways.
You know, you were talking about training, and I know the police and the sheriffs do extensive training. Matter of fact, I get to participate in one up at Pitches, but it was on a closed track, you know, maybe a mile-long track. Are you saying, I mean, I know you're not with the CHP, but does the CHP train by going 100 miles an hour on a busy freeway at night for these kinds of things? I mean, there's a limited amount that you can train.
Well,
right?
you train, but you learn by you're trained by your experience. I mean, when I went through the police academy, the driver's training that we had, and I was on the motorcycle detail for a number of years. Motorcycle in this, you wouldn't be pursuing on a motorcycle at this speed. You would terminate that or let a unit black and white take over. But there's all kinds of factors that play into it. But again, when you look at the CHP, their role in public safety is freeways, state highways, and they do that in extremely well-trained fashion. So you're going to see them much more aggressive than local law enforcement that is out there answering calls for service, 911 calls, etc. CHP wants those roads safe. In fact, they now have some new undercover cars that they're using.
I saw those,
some new Dodge, And
so
you can't tell when they're right on your tail. You have no idea what they're there. But their obligation is to get the speeders, and there's a lot of people, as we know, speed.
New undercover SUVs.
I haven't seen them yet.
They're all like a dark gray. They don't have the black and white CHP paint scheme.
Good to know.
The lights are
all
in the
hidden.
dashboard.
Yeah. So
it's quite a feature. But they have 100 of them statewide, and their whole focus is to get the speeders on the different state roads. But again, state roads is what we use to get to our destinations: Northern California, Southern California, across the country. You get on those state highways. That's what it's about. So you don't have all the traffic that you have to deal with, the cross traffic, etc. But in this situation, we see coming into more traffic. Let's see, we're northbound. We're
on the 110.
Go back into the Civic Center area. Now we see the traffic is getting pretty heavy. So we'll see what happens if we could jump off the freeway. And I'm sure LAPD is monitoring this. While they're not primary, I'm sure they're monitoring.
We're getting off.
Initiated with LA.
It looks like we just took the exit West Manchester Avenue. And we'll see what the next move is. Yep, so we're getting a better look at it. Underneath, I saw the brakes.
Our helicopter might have issues in staying with us just because of the flight restrictions in and around LAX. So we'll see how that goes. But
you see the flashing lights, the reflection of them still.
And these drivers, Dennis, we've seen a couple of these drivers, escape by going into a parking garage, or going under, some kind of covering. We saw that with that crazy milk delivery vehicle. We saw it last night in the LA River Channel. I mean, is there a sense in law enforcement that these drivers are like getting more clever, or is that just too easy to
they
say?
learn as they learn just like everyone else. And now we've got 2 units in there.
Yeah.
What they do is they like to go to a parking structure. You get into a parking structure and you pull in, you find a place, you conceal yourself. That's become the common phase in areas in downtown in particular. And the downtown area also is a problem for helicopters to negotiate with all the tall buildings. So that's another factor. But again, these CHP units are right on it. They're right on it.
Well, this driver just went against traffic right there, almost clipped that innocent driver who's stopped at a red light. So we're at South Main Street, West 84th Street, South LA right now. And this is when it gets even more dangerous. We don't see the speeds that we did, but nonetheless, I mean, the roads are busier. People are out and about on a Friday night. So if you know anybody in this area, please give them a heads up.
Now, the hazards, you can see the hazards now where you have the traffic intersections, you got pedestrians, you got cars. This is very, very hazardous. So, and this is what really jeopardizes the public in general when they get into an area like this in the pursuit.
So once the CHP takes over, if they go back onto surface streets, they still stay with it, right? They don't like get the LAPD back as the primary agency?
Well, they'll maintain. They'll maintain. They've got custody of the pursuit. They'll maintain control, but the LAPD will be assisting. And as the vehicle travels in the residential area, you should see the LAPD assisting, but the CHP will remain the primary.
Do they have the same radio frequencies?
They can communicate through their dispatch. They can go to different frequencies, and the communication centers can then link together.
Coordinate that,
along with they can coordinate all of the transmissions. So what the CHP will broadcast, their communication center can connect with LAPD communication center, and they can communicate. I haven't seen many LAPD units involved in this since the CHP took it over. LAPD really backs off, and the CHP then takes it over. But now they're on the surface street, so LAPD should reappear again.
But for reasons unknown at this point, we've just pulled away, so we don't have a direct shot of the pursuit anymore. Now we're going to zoom back in, perhaps. So let's see what happens. All right. So, we're gonna keep a watch on this, Dennis.
All right.
We thank you. If we are able to resume this, then we will likely ask for your service again. We always appreciate you. In the meantime, we're gonna check in. Thanks, Dennis. We're gonna check in with our chief meteorologist. We were talking about that hot pursuit there, and now we're talking about the hot weather. Yeah,
and good job with that. I've been watching along with everyone else, and it's I don't know what to say.
Friday night in the big town.
I guess so, yeah. No, it looked like the helicopter camera, part of the helicopter got in the way, and then they were so zoomed in that they kind of lost the visual for a second. So
right.
Maybe
we'll see if they get it back. Let's hope so.
Yes. But yes, I'll be happy to talk about the weather a little bit. I know a lot of people are wondering what the weekend's looking like. So we know it's hot. It's been hot for a few days. Our heat wave continues, I'd say officially through Sunday, although the next 2 days probably barely